together to implement a gold standard for testing on the ground, as well as tracking and tracing people with COVID and possible antibody immunity without sacrificing anyone's privacy or individual rights or their civil liberties. And tomorrow we'll be taking the first steps to implement some of the programs we're envisioning that can really help with the economic recovery in the next few weeks. Last week, I stood with the Coalition of Asian Americans Independent Physicians Association, CAIPA, CAIPA, in launching our first ever mobile testing unit, which very similar to the ones that were launched in South Korea, where it looks like a phone booth, and you go in, and it's very mobile, and you can go into communities that may not be driving, and they might have a lot of apartments, and we know that a lot of people are infected but don't have access to testing units. We had a test trial last week in Brooklyn with about 10 patients, and it was very successful. Every test from beginning to end lasted between 3 to 6 minutes. And within 2 to 3 days, they get their results back. And we know, and these are community people in our neighborhoods that trust the nonprofit work of CAIPA and the work that they do. And the problem that we're ultimately trying to resolve is that in communities like ours in Flushing, we have a lot of informal sector workers who are unbanked, undocumented, underinsured, uninsured, but they are critical and essential to our economy. We need to engage them in a trusting manner and get them out of the shadows and test them and track them, and also possibly certify them if they're recovered from the virus, or they have built up antibody in their system. We can do that without, again, giving up their identity and giving up their privacy and their civil rights, civil liberties. So we're very excited that tomorrow we'll be launching this program in Queens, Flushing. Now, we don't have the back end management of tracking and tracing in place yet, but we have a number of amazing experts who I will be talking about next, and I hope to continue working with them to implement the ultimate gold standard for testing, tracking, attesting, and certifying and trusting people again. Tomorrow, the mobile testing unit announcement in Queens will be live streamed at 11 a.m. on my Twitter handle at Ron T. Kim, as well as my Facebook handle at RK4NY, Facebook page RK4NY. So if you have time, please tune in. Our hope is to fully fund this program, the mobile testing units, and expand them throughout the city. Now, the idea came right after the city and the state released some of the horrendous racial discrepancy that we saw, the racial injustice we saw in the outcome of people who were infected by this illness and people who were dying, predominantly at higher percentage of Black and Hispanic community members who did not have access to testing and were not getting tested. And our ultimate objective was to make testing as mobile as possible. I think this is a standard that we need to establish, but ultimately we should expand it into home mobile testing in the future as well. Now, next, tomorrow night, next slide, you can see right there, we have our antibody testing virtual town hall at 5 p.m. Now, the governor had come out this week and said he wants to administer mass antibody testing to get a glimpse of where we are and get a benchmark of whether our population has been infected and whether we built any kind of antibody or immunity and whether we're able to come back to the economy. This is, as he said, modeled after what Germany did, and to get a better sense of if we're able to let people out into our communities. Um, we believe there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to antibody testing, and we also further believe without a comprehensive plan to, to again track and trace without giving up and sacrificing people's privacy and their rights, their fundamental rights, we're missing out on a good opportunity to expedite the recovery process. Um, we should be able to figure out how do we administer the antibody and the COVID-19 and also implement the back-end data management that we sorely lack right now. I wrote an op-ed about this very topic in the Daily News on April 2nd. You can see it right here. You know, what to do with people who recovered. We need a plan now to deal with people who get better from coronavirus. We do not, I repeat, we do not have to rely on Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google to figure out a technological solution based on a centralized system that will ultimately ask for people to give up their private rights for the betterment of the collective good. In my op-ed, I discussed how in late March, President Donald Trump gave every governor a directive to implement robust surveillance. What is robust surveillance exactly? And a couple of weeks later, what do you know? Apple, just as I warned in my op-ed, Apple and Google announced a duopoly like initiative to come into this moment and offer a solution that is based on I mean we have experts who looked at it, a very good technology, but nevertheless what it does is it allows people, it forces people to depend on the ecosystem of Apple and Google. And if you decide to opt out, you no longer belong to the rest of the herd and rest of the group, make almost dehumanizing the individual if you decide not to share your information for the collective good. We don't have to do that. There are better solutions out there, and tomorrow at the 5 p.m. town hall meeting, the virtual town hall meeting, we will be joined by some of the world's brightest minds and experts in this space, starting with, let's see, Dr. Robert Bollinger, the Raj and Kamla Gupta Professor of Infectious Diseases at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, Sundar Subramanian, Chairman of IBCC, whose holdings include Cambridge Technology Enterprises, Gnome, MTPV, Cambridge Energy Resources, Thrive Hive, and DNS Stuff. Dr. Oren First will be joining us. He's an inventor and an entrepreneur with vast experience in healthcare and fine tech. He's also the inventor of more than 20 patents and led multiple exits based on these and other technologies. Of course, my good friend and brother, and sometimes an advisor and a mentor as well, Professor Robert Hockett, the Edward Cornell Professor of Law. John Henry Clippinger, another good friend, is a co-founder of the Token Commons Foundation and a research scientist at the MIT Media Lab. And the two main founders of Value and Archetype and Varus, Mike Todonki and Nick Lyons will be joining us and moderating this virtual town hall to get to the bottom of what is antibody testing as it relates to the COVID-19, the coronavirus, how accurate is it, and what's required to really maximize the impact of the antibody testing as well as the COVID-19 testing in connecting the dots toward the quickest path to economic recovery. This would be um, at again 5 p.m. and it will be on Zoom at bit.ly/APA Solidarity, and it will be live streamed as well on facebook.com/APA Solidarity/live. I will turn to social media to see if there are any questions. Jack Tian says hello. Hello back. Let's see. If there are any questions on Twitter. Oh, pretty straightforward. Okay. Nope, there's possibly a Facebook. Okay. Well, I think so I look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow, 11 a.m. for the first meetup to announce our Queens mobile testing unit, and tomorrow at 5 p.m. virtual town hall and antibody testing. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.